Okay, good morning, everyone. Yesterday we have seen IIM. One is the uh, first service of AWS. So today we are going to cover S3. Okay, S3 is one of the service which is provided by the AWS, and it is called Simple Storage Service. So S3 means Simple Storage Service. Okay, so we'll see what is S3 in this class today and how we use S3 service and what is the purpose of the S3 service. Okay, so we'll see all that in today's class. Okay, so coming to the introduction of S3, Amazon S3 is one of the main building blocks of AWS. So it is the first service, okay, that is being released by the AWS, okay, when it was launched in 2006. Okay, it was advertised as infinity scaling storage, so you can store any, okay, files, any number of files and of any size. Okay, so AWS says S3 is infinity scaling storage, so that means you can store any number of files with maximum number of capacity. Okay, it can store in it S3 service. Okay, many websites use Amazon S3 as backbone. Most of the websites which are built and which are being deployed in AWS, okay, they are being using S3 as a supporting, okay, service to store the backend data or something. So if you can also host a website in S3, so you can host a static website in S3. We'll also see that in today's session with hands-on. Many AWS services use S3 as an integration as well. We already seen that in yesterday's class, IIM is we are creating some roles for the services, okay, which are accessing other services. So most of the services in S3, so most of the services in AWS, so they will be using S3 for their internal storage. For example, let's say I am running an EC2 instance. Okay, so there I am installing some database or something. So what happens if I want to save any logs? Okay, uh, so I can use S3. So I will save my logs which are being generated in AWS EC2 in S3. Okay, similarly, if I want to do any big data related thing, okay, or big data related operations in my EC2 instance, so I will store my big data in my S3 and I can access my files from S3 and I can process it in my EC2 instances. Similarly, so understand like many of the AWS services, okay, they are being using S3 for their internal storage. Okay, so they will be integrating with the AWS S3. So we'll see the step-by-step approach so how to use AWS S3 in today's class. So what are the use cases of S3? So where we are using this S3 means, so S3 is used to save backups and storages. As I said in the previous slide, so if I have a database in my AWS EC2 instance, or if I have a database in my AWS RDS. Okay, so RDS is a database services in AWS. We'll see that in our coming classes. So what we'll do is like we can store all the backup related and the storage related, okay, things in AWS S3. Disaster recovery. So disaster recovery is something. So whenever you have a disaster recovery or some a outage in your production, so outage is nothing but there is an issue in your production environment. So what we can do is we can restore that backup from the S3 and we can make the applications running. Okay, again. So archival. Archival means like we can store the archive data in AWS S3. So for example, uh, say like you are running an insurance company. Okay, so what happens is for the while taking this insurance company, you need to while the like the customers or well the people while they're registered into the for a new policy, what they will do, they will upload you some documents. Okay, mostly this health policies or the insurance policies they will be for about 20 years or sometime it is for the lifetime, so that may be about 30 years or something. So you need to save all those customers data for this all 30 years, right? But you won't be using it frequently, right? So what we'll do is we'll keep the data in a archive format, okay, in AWS S3, so that if whenever we want to use, we can bring it. Okay, AWS S3 is compared to other hard disks like EC2 storage. AWS S3 one of the cheapest storage, so that we will use our files. We'll use AWS S3 to store our files, our Oracle data, our backups in AWS S3. Okay, so it is also called as hybrid cloud storage. Okay, so as we are storing all our files in the cloud, okay, similarly, if you are using a Google drive, so it is also called a hybrid cloud storage. Similarly, S3 can be also a hybrid cloud storage and application hosting. We can also host some applications in AWS S3. We'll also see that in the coming classes. We'll keep our media hosting in there. So if you want to save any videos, okay, or images in AWS S3, we can store them there, okay, and we can access it from AWS S3 in your website. Say like if you are creating a website where you are showing some videos, that means like if you are creating a website to uh, play some movie like videos, movie database related website. So what happens is you can save all those videos of all those movies in S3, and you can access them from EC2, and you can create an application or website so that your application which is running in EC2 service will be able to get all your movie related videos from AWS S3. Okay, so it is also used in data lakes and big data analytics, as I already said in the last slide. So while doing the big data analytics, there will be a requirement of accessing a large number of files. Okay, that is also a big, like huge size of files. So we need to read those files, and that will be used for the big data analytics. So to store all that files, we'll be using AWS S3 service. Software delivery. So whenever we have a software delivery thing, we'll be using some versioning related documents and all. So to access the software delivery, so we'll be keeping all the software delivery related, okay, files in AWS S3 and static website. Okay, we can also host a static website in S3. So this is not something like Java or something. So we can host a static HTML website only in AWS S3. So okay, so we cannot do any backend related things or backend related operations in AWS S3. So we can just host a static website which is designed in HTML and CSS, and we can host it in AWS S3. So we will be seeing that in our coming classes. So today only more probably we'll try to host a website in S3. So, and coming to the real-time scenarios of AWS S3, you can see Nasdaq is storing 7 years of data in S3 Glacier. So we'll see what is Glacier in our coming classes. It is one of the storage type in AWS S3. So Nasdaq is a company like it is storing almost 7 years of its data in AWS Glacier. Uh, and there is another company like which runs all the analytics of the data and gain business insights. So we can be using most probably like S3 for all the big data analytics who are running the big data analytics on the cloud. So they will be definitely using AWS S3 because they will be storing all their files, all the log files, all the output files in AWS S3 only. Okay, so AWS S3 is simple storage service where we are storing the flat files. Okay, so AWS is providing us the service to store all the files related thing in simple storage service. Okay, so what is AWS bucket? So in AWS S3, all these, okay, files are being stored in some in the format of buckets. Okay, so these buckets of AWS S3 have some properties and some limitations. So we'll see that one by one. So what is AWS bucket and what are the limitations and what are the properties of AWS bucket. So first thing is AWS S3 allows people to store objects, that means files, in buckets. Okay, so buckets must have a global unique name. So we can see AWS S3 is a global service. Okay, so in the previous class we have seen about what is a global service and what is a normal region-based service. Okay, so while coming to that, AWS is a global service, and the bucket which you are creating, so that is a unique thing across the all the regions and across globally. Okay, that means if anyone has used, if you have created S3 bucket with name my bucket, so there is no option for the other people to create a bucket with the same name. Okay, so all the bucket names are globally unique, and buckets are defined at the region level. Okay, although the service AWS service is a global service, so but the data which you have stored, okay, in AWS S3, that is being stored in a regional level only. So you need to define a bucket, and you need to say while creating the bucket, okay, so my bucket should be created in this particular region. Okay, so all the data is stored in a regional level, but the AWS S3 is a global service. Okay, S3 looks like a global service, but buckets are all created in a region. So as we discussed now, so S3 looks like a global service. It is a global service, but the bucket which we are creating, okay, the bucket names which we are creating, and the bucket for which the storage to store the data, we are creating buckets now. So those buckets which we are creating, so those will be in a region specific. And there is some naming conventions while we are creating S3 bucket. So we cannot give any uppercase or underscore, okay, while creating a bucket name. And the bucket name should be 3 to 63 characters long. And we cannot give any IP address with dots. Okay, we know what is IP address, like 10.23.54.5. So this is one of the format of IP address. So we cannot give any IP address format related, okay, name for S3 bucket. And the S3 bucket name should start with lower letter or a number. Okay? And it must not start with the prefix XX, XN hyphen. So it won't allow these two prefix and suffixes. Suffix is something which we add in the last of the name, and prefix is something which we add in the starting of the name. So S3 will not allow this two suffix and prefix while creating a bucket name. Okay. So what is objects? So objects is nothing but our files which we are storing in the AWS bucket. Say like for each object they have a key. So key is nothing but the complete URL. Simply, okay. So if I store a, so here this is the format of the S3 object URL. So here S3 is the service name, and here it will get a bucket name and slash the file name. So if you are storing a file name called myfile.txt in my bucket, so you will get a URL for your particular file like this. Okay, this is a unique key for each object. Similarly, if you have created a bucket with name my bucket, and there you can create some folders. Okay, inside my folder I have created another folder, and there I have placed my file. So then what happens is this complete URL will be your key for the particular file or object which you have stored in S3. Okay, so and here you can see the storage, okay, of each object in AWS S3. So maximum object size is 5 TB. Okay, so you can store a single object with a maximum size of 5 TB. Okay, and if you are uploading maximum file of 5 TB or something, so you can upload more than 5 GB at a time. If you have any file which is more than 5 TB, you need to use multi-part upload. So multi-part upload is something which divides your file into different number of pieces to copy, and when you upload it, it will be combined as a single file. So that is called multi-part upload. So this is mostly we can see in big data, and in real time also. If you play any games which is more than 30 to 40 GB games, so they will be also divided into multi-part, okay, files. Okay, So this is about S3 object. So object is something a files which we are storing in AWS S3. Okay, so each object have a unique URL. So that is called a object key. So most of the objects, so that can be maximum size of the object can be 5 TB. Okay, so now we'll see how to create a bucket and how to put objects in our AWS S3 management console. So we'll go to AWS S3 management console first. So I'm opening a browser. So we'll go to AWS console.aws. Okay, so I have already logged in. Okay, in my AWS console. So I'm changing my region to AWS Mumbai. So I'll keep this. Okay, I'll be always using AWS Mumbai because Mumbai is the one which is near to us. So this region is which is near to us. So we'll be always using AWS Mumbai. Okay, so if you want to go to S3, go to the search bar and type S3. So here we'll get S3 service. So we are opening S3 service. So this is the dashboard page. So launch page. So if you want to create a bucket, so click on create bucket. Okay. So now we'll see how to create a bucket. So here we'll give the bucket name. So as we said, as we see in the previous slide, so this bucket name is globally unique. And here you can see, so if I select this S3 service, so now it is showing as a global service. So that means, so S3 service is globally accessible. Now I'll give, and this bucket name should be unique. For example, if I give any bucket name like test, and we leave this, and if I click on create bucket, so see here, bucket name with the same name already exists. Okay, I haven't created any bucket, but like this test bucket, okay, it is already taken by someone. So now it is not allowing me to create this bucket name. So I'll give something like, so I'm giving this bucket name as Raju Weisling demo, and here we can see, okay, we need to specify a particular region where this particular bucket need to be hosted. Okay, it is a global service, although the files which we want to save in S3, that should be assigned to a particular region. Okay, and here we have ownership related. So for now, leave this. Okay, and here we have policy bucket policy access. Okay, for now we will keep it like this. We will see it about when we come about S3 bucket policies. We'll see about this. So if you want to create any versioning for the S3 bucket, so this is also we'll in the next class. So starting we'll create a simple bucket with keeping all these options as default options. Okay, so I'll create a bucket here. Okay, so this Raju Weisling demo. So there is no bucket name with this particular name. So my AWS S3 bucket has been created. So here we can see the name of the bucket. Here we can see the region. Okay, and now what is the access? So here we can see buckets and objects are not public. That means they are not publicly accessible. So we'll see about this in the coming classes. So this is the creation date. So when I click on this bucket name, so here I'll get this screen. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll try to upload some files in this bucket. So for example, I'll save some images. Okay, so now I have three images. So what I'll do is I'll just rename this images one. So now we'll go to here. So we'll click on upload. So here I can add the objects into my S3 bucket. Okay. So here I can click add files, or I can simply drag and drop the files. Here I have my one file doc.jpg. So here it is saying, so we are uploading an object, so which is of type image jpg, and this is the size of the image. Okay, and where we are storing it, it is storing in S3 Raju Weisling demo bucket. Okay, so if I click on upload, so here the file got uploaded in the bucket. So we'll close this. Now we can see, so this is our bucket. So when I click here, so here I can see the particular, okay, object. So when we click on this object, we'll get some other information about this particular object. So here we can see the Warner related key. Okay, here we can see the region where the object has stored. So which is the last modified date. And here coming to this part, this is the actual URL or key of this particular S3 URL. And here we will get a ARN. So ARN we discussed about in the last class. It is a unique address for each service or object in AWS. So this is an ARN of AWS S3. So and the bucket name and the object name. Okay. So if I want to open this particular uh, object which I have uploaded in this bucket. So if I want to open this particular object, so this is the object URL to access this particular image. So when I click on this image, so it is showing, okay, so it is showing, so we'll keep this there. So we'll see this in the permissions time. So when I opening this URL, so we'll keep this in other tab and we'll see about this. So when I open this URL, so it is saying access denied. So we are unable to open this particular, okay, image with this particular URL. And if I click on this open here in the top, see here I can open this particular image. So this is the complete URL of the AWS S3, but I am unable to access this. And here you can see, so till here it is the same URL, but after this we are having some keys here. So this means when I click on this particular open, so what this AWS console do is it is creating a, okay, signature for my particular account. So and it is saying that, okay, the particular person who clicked this URL, like who wants to open this image, is already logged in, and this is his security key, and this is his certificate, or this is his license key. So we'll allow him to open this image. Or else if you only use this particular URL, okay, so we won't be able to open our images because these are not public. So here when we create a bucket, okay, so here we can see the access is buckets are and objects are not public. So this, as this bucket and objects are not public, we cannot use, okay, this URL to open this. So we'll see how to create a policy and how to make this public. Okay, so now we'll see what is a policy. So policy is similar to the thing which we have learned in IAM. So policies allow this AWS S3 buckets or objects to make it public, or how to manage the permissions of allowing it to public. So to whom we need to allow this particular objects in a bucket, you will be defining in the AWS S3 bucket policies. So again, I'm going to the buckets here. So you can go by clicking in the left side menu. Okay, I'm opening my AWS S3 bucket, and if we go here in the permissions, okay, here we can see the bucket public access, and here we can see the policies. So to make this bucket public and to make this particular thing access for the public, what we can do is we can edit this public access, and we can write a new bucket policy. So to make it public, I will do is I'll click on edit. So this is something which is seen in the creation of the bucket. So at that time we have not made any changes for this. So what this will do is it will block all the public access. So if you enable it, so if you disable this, okay. So and if you save the changes, so it will say updating the bucket public access setting for the bucket will affect this bucket and all updates within this. So mostly we won't be saving our buckets in a public access, okay, because like we want to share our data with anyone, so we won't be doing in the public. So if you want to do or if you want to access your object publicly, then you can do this. So I'm clicking on confirm. So now we can see. So block all public access is now off. So here it is saying bucket and objects are not public. Objects are not public still. So what we need to do is we need to create a bucket policy first. Okay, so to do that we need to write a bucket policy here. Okay, so we click on edit. So here we can write a bucket policy. Bucket policy is something which is similar to the AWS IAM policy, and this is our bucket ARN or bucket address. So instead of writing this code, what we can do is we can create a policy using this policy generator. Okay, so I'll click on this. So it will be opening a new window. So here we can create a bucket policy using this user interface. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm creating a bucket policy for AWS S3. I am creating effort allow. Okay, and I'm creating the principal for all users. Okay, and here I'm creating action to get objects of all S3. So I can list objects. So we can create this for get objects. So I am allowing, okay, all people to get all objects from my S3. So one action is selected for this policy, and so for which bucket we are creating this, we need to mention here. So I'll go to this tab. This is the bucket address, right? So I'll copy this and I'll paste it, and I'm giving all the files. That means all the files which is in the Raju Link demo. So in this folder, I'm giving slash star means I'm allowing all the objects in this particular bucket for to read them for all. So I can click on this add statement. So here the statement got added. So you can write any number of statements, and after completing that, we can click on generate policy. So here see, it has created a policy. Okay, JSON. We can copy this and we can go here. I'll paste it here. So add a new statement. So I'll paste it here. See now, it is saying it has created a policy with a unique ID and the version name. Okay, and in the statement it is saying a statement ID, and it's saying the action is get S3 objects to that means the reading all S3 objects we are allowing. Okay, and the resource is this particular bucket, and all the objects in this bucket we are allowing him to get those objects or read those objects for all. Okay, so I'll save this. I have saved this now. See now. So now if I'm using this URL, so I will be access to, so I'll be able to open this particular, okay, object in the bucket. So here you can see we'll also break down this particular URL. So I think you're able to see this URL. So this URL S3 URL will start with the bucket name dot S3. So that is the service, and this is the region code in which you are creating this particular bucket, and after that will be Amazon AWS.com. So that's why, so as this is being used in the URL, so that is the reason this particular bucket name is always a unique name. Okay, so this is the bucket name, and this is the S3 service, and this is the region name, and then we are using AWS Amazon.com slash the object name. So for example, if I want to create some folders in this, we'll see how to do that. So I'm going to my bucket again. I'm creating a folder. So here I'll do something like pets, a folder name as pets. So I'm creating a folder. So I got a folder name called pets. I can open this and I can upload a folder, upload files to the folder. Now I'm putting this cat.jpg file and I'm uploading it here. So here now we have this particular cat.jpg file in. So this bucket name slash pets. Okay, I'm opening this file. So here we'll get the details of this file. See the URL here. So now we have the URL with slash pet slash cats. Okay, so if I can go this, copy this, and I'll paste it here. Now see, so as we have given slash star, that means all the objects in the particular bucket. So it will be applicable to all the objects in the folders also. So whatever files that are being uploaded, or the objects that are being uploaded in AWS S3, so those will get all this access. Okay, so all the access, as we have defined a policy to allow all the objects in S3 bucket should be public. So okay, so we have defined this. So all the objects will become public. Okay, so that is about S3 bucket and bucket policies. So that is how we will create S3 bucket and S3 policies. So we'll go to security thing. So there are some types of securities that is being assigned to the AWS S3. So one first thing is IAM policies. So user-based securities. Okay, so using these user-based securities, we can create a IAM policies, which API call should be allowed for the specific user for IAM. So in the previous classes, like we have seen in the IAM, we have created a user and we have created a policy, and we have assigned that S3 read-only policies to the particular user. So only those users can be using that S3, okay, objects or S3 bucket. So in that cases, like we can create IAM policies and we can assign it to particular users, so that they will be, that user based access will be allowed to the on the S3. And there are second thing is like resource based. In the resource based, the first thing is bucket policies, which we have seen right now. And the bucket policies, we can create a policies, and the other thing is we can give the access to an other AWS account also. So now we are using a management console, AWS S3 management console with a account, right? So this is my AWS management console account with this account ID. Similarly, what we can do is we can give the access of this particular AWS buckets to another AWS account with another ID. Okay, they can also be able to use these buckets. Okay, and they're like object based, object access control list and bucket access control list. So these are also being used in the past, but now this can be disabled by the AWS. So now mostly we are using bucket policies only. Okay, and here we are also see an IAM principal can access an S3 object. Okay, so we have seen in the IAM session. The user IAM permissions allow it, or the resource policy allow it, and there is no explicit deny. So there is no explicitly, we cannot deny any service, deny any policies in AWS S3. Okay, so there is also an encryption mechanism. Okay, that we will see in the coming classes. So there is also an encryption mechanism for the objects which are storing in the S3. So this is something which we have done now. So for the S3 bucket policies, this is the okay format. On the right side, you can see the JSON. So JSON policies. So there are two types. So one is that we can use the JSON policies, okay, or we can give the bucket policies using uh, the policy generator. So either you can give a particular set of rules for the particular folder in a S3 bucket, or you can make the complete bucket, okay, allowed publicly. And we can see how this access will be given to each bucket. So this is one thing. So here I say like I have a user and I have an S3 bucket. So what we can do is we can create a policy for the S3 bucket so that all the people can be using this particular bucket. So this is one type of access which is called public access, which we have just done. We have created a bucket and we have created a policy for the bucket so that now I can be able to hit that URL. I can access the elements or the objects in the bucket. So this is one type of access, public access. Another is user access to S3. So this is something which we have done yesterday in the IAM. So what we have done is we have created a user and we have created a IAM policy for this particular user. In this IAM policy, we have defined S3 read-only access to this particular user. So now I will be able to access the S3 bucket. So this is another type of way to give the access to S3 bucket. So the previous one is the public access and the second one is user access. So we are giving the policies in the user level, not in the S3 bucket level. And coming to other thing, this is EC2 instance access. As we already see in the IAM, so as I said, we are creating some roles. Okay, so these roles are used to grant access to one service to use another service in AWS. So EC2 is a one service in AWS and S3 is another type of service in AWS. So now my EC2 service want to access S3 service. So what I will do is I can create a role for my EC2 instance saying that so EC2 instance role will have permissions to access S3 bucket. I can give that role to my service. So now this EC2 instance service will be able to connect to the S3 bucket and access the objects in S3 bucket. Okay, as we have given a role for this, okay, in that role we have given a permission to access S3 bucket. So these are something like which way permissions using IAM roles. Another thing is we can give the permissions to cross account access. So as I said, so if you are using any, one second, hello, ready? తీసుకెళ్తాను క్లాస్లో ఉన్నాను అయిపోయి తీసుకెళ్తాను హలో okay, so I'm going to do. So as we have already seen, we already discussed about this. So if I have a one AWS account and if I want to access this particular S3 bucket which is in the other AWS account, so what we can do is we can give an access to other AWS account to access my AWS account bucket, S3 bucket. So we can share the S3 bucket across multiple AWS accounts. So we have already seen how we will create a AWS bucket. Okay, so we have created AWS bucket and we have created a properties and policies for this AWS bucket, right? So I have created permission for this and we have made it public and we have created policy here. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll try to host a website in a AWS S3. So for this I have downloaded a template already. So you can, so here I have a template, so which is a plain HTML template. So if I click on this, you can see this is a plain HTML template website. So what we can do is we can upload this or we can host this static website in S3. So there is option to host this website in S3. So if you are using any static website, so you no need to run any server, or you no need to take a virtual server to run all this. So you can simply host it in S3, and this hosting will cost you very cheap compared to any other, okay, service and all. So it will be almost like if you are paying 100 rupees for a server, if you host it in S3, you will be hosting it literally for like 5% of that. So you can host only, but the only condition is you can host only static website in S3. So you cannot do any forms, you cannot host any forms related things in AWS S3. Okay. So what I'll do is I have a particular template here. So this is my complete template. So what I'll do is I'll upload this particular, okay, website or some this particular objects in my AWS bucket, and I'll try to access this. Okay. So to do that, I'll go to my S3 account. Okay, I'll go to my buckets. So I'll open this bucket. So I can leave this. What I'll do is I'll upload this. So to upload multiple files, what we can do is we can just select these files. Okay. So because there are some other files in this folder and there are some other files in this folder, so we cannot select one by one. So we can simply drag and drop it here. So it will list all the objects which are in that folder. Okay. So we'll click on upload. So here we can see it is about 3.5 MB. So we can see the bucket and file names here. So we can see the status. Okay, now all my files are uploaded in my S3 bucket. So this is my bucket, right? So all these files are uploaded in my S3 bucket. So we'll close this. Okay. So now I have this complete website in my AWS S3 bucket. Okay. So now how to host it as a website. So here we'll go to this properties, and if you go to the bottom here, so here we have option like static website hosting. So we can click edit here, and here we'll enable static website hosting, and we'll keep this as host as a website. And here we need to specify, so what is the index page of our particular website and what is the other page. So by default, it will take index.html as the default page to open. So when you click on this website to URL, it need to pick some HTML page, main HTML page. So we need to define that. So here we have index.html, and by default it will take index.html, or if you have anything like home.html, so we can keep that. So by default it is index.html. I leave this, and here I will click on save changes. So I'll give index.html. Okay, and save changes. So if we go down, so now see, so here it has given me a website endpoint, and this is our URL for our website. So this is Raju Wising Demo S3 website, and it is in the AP South region in AWS S3 cloud. So if I click on this particular website, see now, so if you can see this here, we can simply host a website, and we can use this URL, and we can, if you can say like I'm opening this or creating this website for some mobile something, so I can use something like, take something like a bigc.com or something, and I can keep this URL in the bigc.com domain DNS service. So that will be so we'll be seeing that in the Route 53 session. So for now you need to understand, like we can host static websites in AWS S3. So it is simple, very simple to host a website here. So you can host this anywhere. This is accessible over the internet like other websites. Okay. So this is very simple to host a website in AWS S3. Okay, that's it for today. We'll see about, there will be one more class about S3 on Monday. So we'll be on to, like, it will take 2 days for this S3 to cover. and try to. So I hope you all created a free tier account. Okay, so go to AWS S3 and it also won't cost much. Okay, so it is okay. So you can create a bucket and you can put some files in it and you can play with this properties and permissions. Okay, so the main thing about in S3 is like these permissions and properties. So and in the this bucket policy is one of the important thing. So you need to learn for AWS Associate. This is enough. Okay, so if you have any doubts, you can ask me, or else we can close the session for today.